Mahadaya. Myself, Monisha Ghosh.
Okay. One second. Okay. So now just started. I invite Dr. Tanisha Dutta and Monisha Ghosh, sorry, for the August session of our Veda Samskruti Samiti Charcha Vedika on the topic of sonic geometry in temple architecture. It's a very important and a very prestigious topic for our culture. So we found that this is one of the important best topics with other 2-3 topics. So I announce here that this topic has also been considered as the best topic out of these 50 lectures. So I request these two people kindly present their topic and enlighten us on the sonic geometry and temple architecture.
Dhanyavad Mahoday. I will share my screen now.
Yeah, please.
Namaskaram. Namo Namo Mahadoy, Namo Namo Mahadaya. Myself, Monisha Ghosh. I am the co-author of the paper with Dr. Tanisha Dutta. I am going to present the preliminary points, and then Dr. Tanisha Dutta will follow my topic. Okay, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the paper in this platform. So I want to begin actually the presentation by the Shloka Asatoma. So kindly, if possible, everybody join your hands when I'm chanting this mantras. So it will enlighten all of us for enhancing our positivity in nature. So kindly close your eyes. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Vityuma Amritasamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om, everyone. I am going to present a topic on sonic geometry in temple architecture. With the beginning of the topic, I want to give some enlightenment on the sonic geometry and how it can be related to the presentations of the sound and with the geometry. So everybody, we know that in our modern world, as well as from the ancient times, we are very fond of the sounds. Like, why it is so? Because humans have the capability of have the frequency ranges to hear something from the radio frequency range from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So that is why how the 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, which is basically our audible range, so it can be represented in form of the geometric patterns. So that is our main motto of the topic. So this is the presentations of our topic. So through these topics, we want to enhance what is the importance of chanting Om and what is the importance of chanting Gayatri Mantra. And then followed by the Mahamrityunjay Mantra. These are the points, key points we will announce, and we will check how it can affect our minds and body. Next slide, please. Now, my former author will present the Sanskrit Shloka and I will deliver the meaning of that.
Paratma nekam jagad bija madhyam niriham nirankaram omkara vedyam yato jayate palyate yena vishwam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishwam.
It means I adore the Lord, the Supreme Atman, the one, the primordial cases of the universe, the actionless, the formless, the who is denoted by Om. From Om, the universe came into begins, who by whom it is sustained, and into it will dissolve. So Om is so much important that we can say that everything is surrounded with Om, and its frequency, which is how we can vibrate. So it is all about Om. And everything in this universe, and when we are talking about outer the universe, all is inside Om. Next slide, please.
Racho akshare parame vayoman yasmin deva adi vishve nisheduhu yastan naveda kim racha karishyati ya it tad vidust ime samasate.
It means that who knows Vedas is also important, and who don't know it Vedas, they also have to know Vedas, that the essence of Vedas is generated from Om, and we have to know how the vibrations is created. Next slide, please. Now, what is the importance of Om and what is the importance of chanting Om? So here, Om is also depicted or also considered as AUM or AUM. So what is inside this AUM or AUM? So we can say our five state of consciousness, that is the Jagrit Avasya, the deeper sleep, that is the Shubha Triti, then the Turiya Avastha, then the Maya and the illusion states, and the Swapna state, which is the complete deep sleep. These are all represented using the Om. And then how the vibrations is created and how we can chant it, this Om, is completely gives us a self-satisfaction and self-alignment through which we can vibrate positively. Next slide, please. Now, there are the four elements, not four, exactly the five elements which can this symbols represent. So first is the A is the Akara, then U is the Utkara, and then M is the Makara, and Bindu and the Nada. So these are what that the endless God which we can symbolize inside the temples. So this God can be represented in terms of the Om. So that is the slides will represent. Next slide, please. Okay, so now my former co-author will present this former slides. Thank you.
Going with this concept that has just been explained by Monisha ji, we have selected a case study, that is Kandarya Mahadev Temple in Khajuraho, to explain this concept and apply and see whether what we are hypothesizing makes sense or not. So just as a background, I want to present these images. These are the images of Kandarya Mahadev in Khajuraho. This is one of the temples in the whole cluster of temples in Khajuraho. This is a Shiva temple. Now here only by looking at these pictures superficially itself, we can see the profusion of details. We can see the amount of complexity on the surface of these walls. And we also see the jaggedness, right? We can see the beautiful edges, the nice light and shade that has been given. So we wanted to understand basically why this is so, why the temple architecture needs to be like this. So one example I will take for symbolism, that is, if we look at the bottom left image, we can see clearly lotus petals, right? And we can also see waves. Okay, we can see waves. So very smartly, the lotus petals have been placed over the band of waves. So this is where direct inspiration from nature comes from. Okay, so all of these temples which are aesthetic and create a good vibration have all of the important characteristics from nature and then finally from sound itself. Now in this panel also we can see so many profusion of details, and we can see a lot of apsaras and human beings. Now what is highlighted here is the way the panels have been subdivided. So that is another concept that is very important in temple architecture. Another concept, a little concept that we are simply touching all of the concepts. We are not going into detail of all of these. So here I want to highlight in these images that it's not all details. There is a good balance and combination of smooth surfaces and details at the same time. So all of these surfaces are a good balance, and it doesn't confuse your mind or doesn't hyperactivate your mind. It gives you a perfect feeling. Here again, this image highlights the beautiful jaggedness. I will just highlight this quickly. See this bottom line and how it is jagged. So we can go like that, and we can go in a stepwise manner. So that is what is highlighted here. This is another image which very clearly depicts the Mount Meru, which is supposed to be symbolized by all temples, all Indian temples, may it be Dravida, Nagara, Vesara, whatever. There are many other typologies of temples as well. And they give a very beautiful effect against the sun especially. Now, this is just an example of an image from the interior of the temple. Y'all must have definitely noticed that the outside was more of monochrome. The distinctions are much less, even though lighting shade made a beautiful impact there. There were many distractions because there were profusion of details and lots of panels and lots of activity, from daily mundane life to royal court life to gods and goddesses themes, and there was profusion of topics. Now, in the interior, we can clearly see there are much less topics, right? It is more stark distinctions, lesser gray shades, that is lesser in between shades, lesser distractions, and therefore everything is clearer because of higher contrast. So that is how the journey from the outside of the temple to the inside is supposed to be. Even if we are confused and we have lots of things on our mind, we have to be getting more and more clearer, and about, distinctions have to be clearer as we approach the Almighty. So the relationship that develops between forms and their meanings within this Hindu temple is essential to its function as a link between man and God. Now, this is very important. What does this temple do? What does any temple do for that matter? It creates a link between man and God. So the temple is supposed to be the home for God, the abode of God, as well as the Almighty himself at the same time. So temple is a representation of the macrocosm as well as the microcosm, that is the inner space, in regard with all of these important points that we've already discussed. So I want to highlight, we are simply touching upon some of the most important characteristics of the geometry of temple, because we need to use it for application in the sound area. So all of these diagrams, images are also highlighting similar concepts. The leftmost image shows a very minute detail, which is just about 1 inch in height, to the beautiful profusion of details and the lovely complexity that gives a beautiful feeling when visited. So all of these, and of course the Rig Veda uses a subtle system of symbolism, which is most importantly open to interpretation at various levels. So when each person is interpreting, the person has a lot of baggage, the person has some background knowledge and a basic setting or ambience or context in which he or she is visualizing this knowledge. And most importantly, it is open to interpretation. So when we're talking about geometry in temple context, there are various concepts that we need to look at, though we are not going in much detail, but sacred geometry is a very important part. Biomimicry has been employed very beautifully, even though it's a new concept. It has already been employed, and there is no doubt that our ancient rishis had all of this knowledge, albeit in another language. Not biomimicry or fractals per se, but they had all of this knowledge, which was important to create the ambience required. Shapes and patterns, and of course number theory, extremely important. So there's been many research on this topic, and essentially what we need to highlight here is the function of the temple is supposed to be to create a link between man and God, which is done with the help of the overall form of the temple that has been achieved, alongside the meaning, either the symbolic meaning or our existing classical conditioning that we already go through, all of us already go through. So these are just some more images to remind us of that. This is how the temple highlights and incorporates our human body as the path to which, through which we can actually transcend into the higher self. Monisha ji, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Continue with the Dr. Tanisha Dutta ji. So I want to represent now from here onwards. So how the sound can be seen actually. So we know that there is a term recent nowadays. Our really continued with that. Our ancient rishis and munis all know this, how the sound can affect us, how it can be visualized. We can sound the visualizations of the sound. But nowadays we can give this terms certain names. So here I choose already it is chosen the name for the representations of the sound is cymatics. So I here briefly, I want to just say that how the sound can be visualized. So there is a sonic plate, and on this plate, there are two ways. One is on the plate, by putting some sands and creating some vibrations on the sands, the molecules of the sands will scatter. And after the scatterings, how the sound is generated and how the vibrations is generated, automatically they are having certain forms of the mandalas. And what is the mandalas and why the concept of mandalas in our ancient temples as well as in our mind bodies? So mandalas are the forms where we having our own self. So from the center point to the outer layers, so here from the center the energies emerges out. So here also in case of cymatics, the things are similar. So from the center, the patterns are generated by the vibrations and it will goes outwards. So here, Om is represented on the right-hand side figure, which is the cymatic configurations of the primordial sound of Om, which is vibrated near about the frequency just 432 hertz. Maybe there is a dilemma of there are certain frequency changes, the octave changes, but mostly we are taking care of that sounds. So next slide, please. Okay, now there is a very important and interesting part of our paper, that is we can see actually sound, right? Where we can see it in the temple architectures. So now right hand side, this is the Vitala temples in Hampi, where there are hundreds of pillars, which is known as the musical pillars. And what is the effect of the musical pillars? So these pillars are placed in the mandapas, where we can say that there are the swaras, the different forms of the ganas, that is the ragas, and there is the layas, that is the tal, can be represented by each and every pillars. So when we are just stroking the pillars, we are having a certain set of frequency vibrations, or we can say in terms of what commonly we know these are the sounds, and how these sounds are generated and how we can able to hear that sound different ways, because we humans are the ability to hear the form of the sound from the, again I'm mentioning the 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So these are the frequency ranges where we can see or where we can actually hear, and then we can see by using the cymatics where we can see the sounds. Now the left hand side, it is the Amriteshwar temple. Here is also the carving of the pillars is represent the different frequencies and the different octaves of the pillars. And these different octaves of the pillars means different frequency ranges. So here, how we can change the vibrations and how we can change the circumstances by only having a slot in the pillars. So there that changes, and how it can be changes our mind, because we all know that sound is the primordial and the preliminary effect in our minds, and how it will be, that is continued in the next paper. Please, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the shape of the sounds. So I already mentioned this. Next slide. Yeah, so this is done by Hemi in 2014, that what is the effect of continuously chanting Om. So when we are able to chant Om, a first author which is presented one paper on the yoga. So she also mentioned the effect of yoga and chanting of Oms. So continuously when we are chanting Om, then we are able to set our mind, and we are very much conscious in our field when we continuously chanting our Om. So this figure 6 is represent how the chanting of Om will represent and settles our mind, and it gives us a less pressures in our minds. Next slide, please. Now, it is also mentioned in Lalita Shastranama that chanting Lalita Shastranama at the morning and Vishnu Shastranama in the evening has an immense effect of on our stress. So when we are chanting this, so then automatically our in body 7 chakras is healed, and actually it is in a alignment when we are chanting this. Next slide, please. Now, this is the depictions of the sound. So it is the tonographical effects or tonographical pictures where sound is visualized. That means when we are putting, or when we using a microphone, when we chant Om only, then it will be in a plate which consider of the water, or in a bowl when we are having water inside the bowl, or a plate which consists of the sands. It creates a vibrations and it changes patterns, and the patterns is actually the Shri Yantra, the 2D Shri Yantra. And next slide, please. And these are all the Tripura Sundari, the Shri Yantra, the depictions of the Om, which is vibrations, and the letter pictures are all the cymatic pictures which are created for the different frequencies. And next slide, please. And this is the piano. We all hear the pianos, right? There are different octave sets. A2 is represented around the 110 hertz, and it followed by the frequencies like this. And all these pictures are actually the mandalas which are created from the sound. And the different frequencies. Sound means the I here represent the sound means the frequencies. Next slide, please. Now, this here, this is already told by the architecture, my co-author, Tanisha Dattaji, that how the sound is actually affects us when we entering the temples. So here, this slide and the next slide, that two slides, I will try to explain that how the energies are there. So we all know that the sound is related to energy. Not only that, specifically we can say that frequency is exactly related to the energies, and the energies which is generated in the shikhara, in the Garbhagriha of the Shikara, how it is generated. The priest who is inside that Garbhagriha and continuously chanting the mantras, it has an immense effect. How it gives us the immense effect that each and every syllables of the mantra, it's sort of different frequencies, and this frequency when it is resonate inside the Garbhagriha, and the deity who is present itself in the Garbhagriha, it vibrates from there and it reflects the sound from there, and whoever is outside the Garbhagriha, in the Antaralaya, so she or he or the devotees having that immense energy absorptions in his body. So this is the depictions that the energy will releases. This is the exponential decay curve, is the first figure, which represent that the energy decreases how when we are moving out the temple, and when we are entering inside the temple from the beginning, that is the Ardha Mandapa to the Garbhagriha, the energy is increased. So this is the depictions of this. So here also, as Tanisha ji already told, that the Meru is represented in the Garbhagriha. So this is how the different architectural marbles and architectural shapes which can create different vibrations, and continuously these different vibrations can create a continuous and overall vibrations which gives us the immense energy and the positive energy which actually we observe from the temples. Next slide, please. Now, the significance of bell. So this is one of the most, we all know that when we entering from the Ardha Mandapa, we should ring the bell. So why it is needed? Because now it is this frequency, again the terms comes into our mind, that is the frequency. So it is known nowadays that the temple bells have been made by such a material which actually able to generate subtle frequencies which can align ourselves. That means aligns the 7 chakras which are present in our bodies. And when we entering into the temples, we are completely conscious in our mind, and we are very much positive in our mind, so that all the negativity, all the stress, we can leave at the outside the temples, and we can fully concentrate on the deities who is present, and we can absorb all the positive absorptions as by chanting the corresponding mantra for the deities. Next slide, please. Now, from this slide and onwards, it will be presented by Tanisha ji. Thank you.
So till now, what we've seen is whatever data we've collected is we have seen how Om behaves, A, U, and Ma, and the Nad. Then we've seen generally what temples stand for, why they are built, and what their basic intention is for construction. And we've also seen how sound frequencies affect the human brain. Now, putting all of this data together, we came to the conclusion that Shri Yantra is a very, very important physical form, which is actually a manifestation of the only audible Om sound. So this is one basic Shri Yantra. There are many types of Shri Yantras actually. There are various geometric diagrams which are prevalent with respect to the exact activity it needs to be employed for and the deity it connects with. So this one that was represented in the previous slide is the Tripura Sundari Yantra. Yantras are essentially of three types. That is, first one is the 2D, which is Mandala, which we are all very familiar with. Second is the 3D, the Meru Parvat, which is simply a mountain shape, or the temple Shikhara form. And third is the Sankhya Yantra, which is the numerical pattern. And this numerical pattern, when arranged in certain ways, gives rise to beautiful patterns and concepts. Now, this shloka that has been mentioned here is the Kaularnava Tantra. Now here what is happening is this shloka is extremely important for our study because it says that yantra, which is a presentation or the manifestation, physical manifestation of mantra, that is sound. The deity is actually an embodiment of the mantra. Now what is being mentioned is the mantra, the audible sound and not the visible one, is the deity's manifestation, and the yantra being the physical, the visual manifestation of the yantra itself, the tantra itself, becomes a very, very important connecting point with the humans to the deities. The yantra is of the deity as the body is of the being. So it is synonymous. Yantra is the body of the deity. That is what is being said. And as oil is to lamp. This makes profound sense as all forms in the existence are varying complexities of reverberation. Now, this is also a concept which has been repeated over and over in our ancient sciences, as well as confirmed by modern scientists, that we are all vibrations, we are all reverberations of certain frequencies. So it makes our utmost sense to analyze our own feelings and behavior with respect to the reverberations. Now, as I said, yantras are of a variety of types. So these are various forms and shapes that are created, that are used to create these yantras. And also this is the right side diagram highlights the fact that the subtle chakras of the human body are also mini yantras in itself, which manifest which attract and focus and manifest the energy, various energies required for those various body parts and the stage of our attainment that we are in. Now, when these yantras, these diagrams are created, they are all created on the basis of the geometrical aspects of concentric progression, repetition, scaling, and framing. Now, connecting the Sri Yantra to the temple architecture only geometrically, we find that all of these concepts are also employed in temple architecture as well. Now, what we did was, as an experiment, we tried to superimpose and overlap this basic Sri Yantra to the temple plan. Now, this left diagram is the Kandaria Mahadev Khajuraho temple plan. Okay. Now, we have tried to superimpose this Sri Yantra here. So, what we did first is highlight the center of the Garbhagriha, and another major center here was the Mandapa Center, right? So these were the two large areas. I will highlight with the help of my pen. Actually, it will be easier. Okay. So this is one main area, very important area, and this is the other important area. So the center is this as well as this. So what we did was, we tried to superimpose, overlap two of these mandalas on this. So this will be one superimposition along with this being the other. Now this right side most diagram very clearly shows how this superimposition has been done. Also, I have tried to superimpose one small Shri Yantra alongside the Ardha Mandapa, which is the entrance foyer. That is also a beautiful square, and these squares when put together really gives rise to the temple form. Now, highlighting this concept here, once we've understood how this Sri Yantra can be superimposed, it was very important. If you look at this left diagram, this being the center, these are the concentric circles we get. Now, why have I created concentric circles here is because sound is a point source in a sphere. It's a point source and it emanates and propagates in all directions in 360 degrees, right? So therefore, I've taken one center and I have given emanating sound source. Now, what I can do is, now, I will also make the same sound source emanate from the Garbhagriha as well. That is also a very, very high energy center. And like Monisha ji has already mentioned, that the energy rise is exponential and it raises from the entrance till the Garbhagriha and is maximum at the center of the Garbhagriha. Also, this second diagram, which overlaps to the, which coincides with the center of the Mandapa and emanates. Now, what we get here is this region. This is a very, very important region, which is highlighted here. Now, in this paper, what we focused on was the male and female principle. We know that the upward pointing triangle is the male principle and the downward pointing triangle is the female principle. Now, here, when we look at these triangles, we can clearly see the manifestation of both of these. So here in the right side diagram, we see that the blue triangle here is the male principle. Another blue triangle here is the male principle. Then we have two female principles, one here and one at the bottom, right? Now, all of these diagrams are absolutely clear to us. And we also find our beautiful temple form here with the beautiful jaggedness and the amazing complexity, which is which always excites all of us for temple structures. One more important point here being this central region. Now, this central region, what is happening exactly is the coinciding of the male and the female principle, the beautiful overlap region. Now, what I want to highlight here is that this central region is neither the center of Garbhagriha nor the center of the Mandapa. This is actually the Antarala portion, which is the transition space from the Mandapa to the Garbhagriha. Now, in most of the temples, we do not really enter the Garbhagriha, right? We stop at the Antaral and we only take darshan. The point here, our hypothesis here that we want to prove is, we are saying that this Antaral becomes the most important and the highest energy portion of the temple. Even though it is not technically the geometrical center, but the sound emanations make it, the coinciding of sound emanations make it the highest energy portion. And that is why it makes profound sense for us to stand at the Antaral and take darshan of the deity. So this was how we tried to prove our little, small little point in relation to the temple. This was the final conclusion. So basically the overlapping part of the two Sri Yantras forms the Antarala, that is the transition space between the Mandapa or Mahamandapa and the Garbhagriha. It seems only logical that the 2D and 3D form is generated out of an intricate chain of Sri Yantras overlapped to produce the respective energy centers. Now, these sentences are very, very important and have been very carefully written. So this dual impact, visual and metaphysical, is the result of that primal sound, which is the source of creation itself. So it may be concluded that these geometries and its generative forms are the reason for the visual, oral, and chakral impacts on the body and mind. Not only on the plan, but also in ceilings of Mahamandapa, the Garbhagriha, as well as the Antaral. All of these beautiful patterns are seen, and the concept of emanation and superimposition are reinforced. So finally, in the Mandukya Upanishad, the verse says that that which has no parts, that is the soundless, and incomprehensible, that is only with respect to our five senses that we have, the cessation of all phenomena, all bliss and non-dual Om, is the fourth and verily the same as the Atman. So Om coincides with the Atman, and therefore that manifestation, physical manifestation, geometrical manifestation of sound really touches our Atman. He who knows this merges his self in the higher self. So this reiterates the healing capacity of temples and justifies the feeling generated in a temple space through its architecture. It is the method of communicating with the universe as humans are stepping inside the sound geometry. These sounds are, so the concept here is the sound geometry is actually in 3D form, and we are stepping inside it to experience it to the fullest. So these sounds are seen to have immense impacts on humans, and being within the form produced by it has more pronounced and all-round effect, contributing to generative forces. Dhanyavad for the opportunity.
Dhanyavadaha. It's a very excellent lecture given to us with proper PPT. And the sound is a very important topic that is controlling our most of the science. And in cognitive science also, I have this effect of sound is still to be obtained. Research is to be done. So is being done also. So with this, we thank you very much for giving an excellent lecture. I request very senior people are there in the audience and share their views, and also anybody having doubts or questions they can ask, please. Anybody would like to share their ideas or ask questions?
I have a question actually.
Yeah, Mr. Venkata Subbarav. Oh, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. It was actually quite informative. I just want to know how does Dvajastambha come into the equation, and how does it help? Does it help with the sound propagation, or any energy involved with that?
One thing, I'm sorry. I just wanted to request both the speakers to please introduce. They are from Nagpur, basically architectural people. And I request you, please introduce yourself first to the audience. I didn't do that in the beginning. Please introduce yourself, please.
No problem. Namaskar, Mahoday. I am Dr. Tanisha Dutta from Nagpur. And my friend is from Kolkata. She's an engineer and I'm an architect. So therefore, this combination of architecture and the impact of sound, that is what we attempted. Monisha ji, would you like to say something more?
Basically, I am from electronics background. I'm an electronics engineer, and the things which actually we want to bridge, me and Tanisha ma'am, we want to bridge that how the electronics can be able to visualize in form of the temple architecture. So that is our primary motto, to take the ancient temples and how the sound and frequencies can be incorporated in the visualization in terms of temples. So that is the things we have to see in this presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Excellent. Electrical and electronics are all the mostly based on the waveforms only. This all waveforms theory only is there. That's why you could do the best job. So I definitely appreciate your work. Now let us go to the question of Dr. Mr. Venkata Subbarav regarding the Dvajastambham, please. Please answer.
Mahoday, we have not really focused on the Rajastambha as yet. This was the first of a series, I'm hoping, in this study, because this is our first study on how Om, that is manifestation into Sri Yantra, and how the Sri Yantra has been applied in the temple form. We have only addressed the plan form as yet. And Monisha and I do plan to take this research ahead by applying it to various other parts and having a more comprehensive view. So Rajastambha, as of now, we've not attempted.
Can I jump in?
I have a question. I am Raghava Rachuri. Thanks for the excellent presentation.
Please.
One thing that always amazes me in temples is that which you have presented about how the acoustics and other things plays a role, and how they are actually represents the yantras. That being so, how do we understand how those people were able to visualize all these things in those days, and how they were able to plan such a wonderful construction running to even acres, and who was the people who were actually managing that, how they were able to convey these messages. So for example, yantra is a small complex thing which we researchers at the PhD level are finding it difficult to understand. How these were being converted uh, passed on to the actual sculptors and architects who were actually building it, because they were all not well educated people. So how there was any thoughts on that, and how whether you were anytime you felt like focusing it, because there is lot of hidden knowledge in that. If we can understand how they were able to do that, then we will be able to probably construct such type of temples.
Monisha, do you want to take that?
Yeah. Actually, sir, we are just started doing the research on that. So what, from my understanding points, that we know that the energy is completely related to frequencies. How is it so? Because there's a formula. Capital E is the energy which is related to the frequency and the Planck constants. So frequency is directly proportional to the energy. So when we are saying such a word, that the energy is what basically, or the frequency is what, this is the oscillations. Okay, oscillations means the things which is created. When I am talking to you, that is also the vibrations is created and the frequency also is created. And this is also, the similar concept is also done inside the temples also. When we are chanting, suppose this is the primordial Om. When we are chanting this is a certain vibrations which is created or not chanted from our from us, and this is directly hit to the nearby architectural panels. So when we are nearby after the Mahamandapa and nearby the deity, so then what is the exact form of the chants for the specific deity? Our mantra will hit the deity, the vibrations hit the deity. Maybe I'm just telling that hit. It is actually the
Sorry.
The
Sorry
question
to
is,
interrupt
the
you.
question
My
is
question
different.
was slightly different.
The
My
question is
question was how this was actually conveyed to those sculptors and architects who were able to do that. Who was the person who was managing this entire thing? Has any research been done on that? Because that is my area of interest. How they were able to understand these concepts, these such complex concepts like the yantra, the sound, the acoustic knowledge, the architecture, how they were
Yeah,
able to understand all these things? Who was the person who was controlling all these things and managing and
Okay.
say civil engineering or architectural work? Who was doing this? So why I never find any of these details in any of the research papers that I come across. That is very sad, because that is where we are missing the knowledge of how to understand the temples.
Exactly. Raghavji, very, very important point actually. The fact here being, we do not know the name of the architect who designed all of our temples and who all were involved in it. But we just know a basic pattern and scheme. That is, we did have architects and civil engineers and craftsmen and artisans and sculptors in that period also. And they were all very, very educated. They were all, in fact, much more educated in the Vedas and the knowledge of the higher self than us. Of course, there was one manager who's going to be the Sthapati who will look at all of these. So he would give out this concept, and then everybody would work on their, their part of the work in the contribution of the temple. So that is all we know. And apart from that, in the temple case, we do not really know the names of the architects, but we always know the patrons. We know the patron kings who paid the money for construction of these temples. So somehow that became more important. And probably because the king who was patronizing, who was actually giving the money for it, it was his concept or his idea or his beliefs that were depicted, and not the Sthapati or the particular artisans. So I'm just guessing from whatever existing knowledge we have that since his name was mentioned, it was his concept. So conceptually, if we today sit down and analyze these temples, we are understanding the king who has given the money for it and not really the architects. But yes, there is no doubt that our ancient Rishimunis had all of this knowledge and much more that we still have not explored.
Let me
interfere here. I have experience of constructing two temples.
And
I am associated seriously with the Sthapati who is in charge of the construction of the temple. And I was involved in their designs and other things also, and how they were constructed also. I was involved totally from the beginning, from the date of Sila Sankhustapana to the Pratishta. So I was totally involved in that. I was the project manager for that job given by my company, Deccan Cements Group in Hyderabad. Incidentally, for these Nagpur people, they can understand if they go to the Kannan River, near Kannan River, there is a DCL Polyesters company, Reliance company is there. In that, Ganesh temple is there. That Ganesh temple was totally project managed by me. So there, what I want to convey to you, the audience here is, the Ganapat Stapati is a Veda Pandit, not a Brahmin Pandit, is a non-Brahmin Pandit, but Shilpa Pandit. That sect, that separate sect is there, Shilpakara. The Shilpakara Pandit, he is knowledgeable in Vedas, he is knowledgeable in Shilpa Shastra. He has written books, 2-3 books he has written, Ganapati Stapati from Kanchi. So he is the person who is in charge of the temple, and blessed by Jagadguru Jayendra Saraswati, we did that temple. And one more temple we constructed, Kodan Ramaswamy temple at Deccan Cements factory in Miriyalguda, near Miriyalguda. So both these temples, architecture, their designs, everything was done by them. So that they are Sanskrit Pandits, Veda Pandits. It's not that they don't know anything. That they are, in these days itself, people are there. The Balaji Kiritam was designed by him. The Kiritam of the Balaji was designed by him. Most of the temple sculptures was made by him. They have got Shankar Shilpasala in Kanchi. You can go to Shankar Shilpasala and their Shilpas.
I am aware about Ganapati Stapati. He has also written books on about sculpture in Tamil, which was also translated into English and other things. I have seen parts of that book also.
Along with him, one Raghavacharya was also there, who was also a Pandit from Hyderabad. So these people are not that, people are not there, you cannot say. They are there definitely. The Shastram was there. And this is the present concept, what is being nowadays, it's a modern way, how the frequency theory and how the sonic aspects of it has been exhibited in the temple architecture. That's the present topic now. Okay. With this, let us go to the another question from Shiva Channapati.
Yeah.
Shiva Channapati is another speaker for us who has presented a paper to us. Whose paper was also considered the best paper from the Vaimanic Shastra. So he has got some doubts.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Prabhakar ji, for letting me talk. Actually, because I'm very much interested in this topic, because the Garbhagudi, on top of the Garbhagudi, the thing about the Gopra or whatever in the Garbhagudi is also called Vimana. So I started digging a lot into this, and I found out like astonishing results. Like what Monisha ji and Tanisha ji has presented is great on the sonic aspect, but there's a huge unknown thing. And when I've started digging into this, there is a huge electrical circuit. The whole temple is an electrical circuit. There was one question on Dvajastambha. Basically, it's same as the Mula or the ground, or it's electrical ground, the first electrical ground. It's something like this, the whole human body, and the Sahasra, the seventh chakra, is the Kalasha on the top, and the whole thing is an electrical circuit. It's amazingly designed, and you can even download electrical energy from the ionosphere. Ionosphere is highly charged, high voltage energy is available. People say temple is energy. Of course, there is also a sonic energy, but there is a huge part which everyone ignored is the electrical energy. We can download electrical energy from ionosphere. We can even get power or electricity from these temples. Actually, these temples are power receiving or power receiving towers. So Tesla did this already in the past. So even like not in our temples, in my opinion, they were like more than like 7 or 8 or 10,000 years ago. They're also used for getting electricity from the ionosphere. So we can do that. We can get it back. So this is this Mula, and there is also one more Mula under the under the Garbhagudi, under the main Vigraha, right? So there are two mulas. So it forms an LC resonance. Maybe Monisha ji can understand it. So there is an 8 hertz resonance using. So it's an LC capacitor. So we have to make it, and we can get that. We can download that energy. It's huge amount of energy we can get from using temples. Actually, yeah. So, but
Actually,
I just started tapping into that because of Vimana Shastra. The top part is also called Vimana, and there is a lot of link to that, and it's a huge electrical circuit, and we need to, I think, we need to work together to get this going. Actually,
This
this is a
part
lot to
mentioned
explore.
particularly in
let me add
Samarangana
here.
Sutradhara.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
let
ahead.
me add here. The
Yeah.
top of the Vimana, we have the kalashas.
Right.
The kalashas are made of copper.
Yes.
Pure
It's
copper.
an electrical
Pure
conductor.
copper.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's an electrical conductor. See, when
Yeah,
the
that's
Gopuram
what I'm
and other
saying.
things are made, not only in
seventh-
Garbhagudi, in Mukhadwara, main Dwaram also, that Gopuram, Gali Gopuram also will have those kalashas. Those kalashas are electrical short circuit things to the earth, lightning effect. Out of lightning effect, whatever is there. So in those days itself, the lightning effect creating a electrode to the, I'm also an electrical engineer, creating an electrode to the complete ground. They must have created some channel.
Yeah, that one is sorry sir, that one is for stopping the lightning. That one is for stopping lightning. But I'm talking
lightning,
about
that's
getting
what
the
I'm
electricity from the.
I want to share
I got
some
your
thoughts
point.
on this.
I'm adding that stuff. I'm adding to
yeah.
your point.
Yeah,
There's another electrical aspect is there,
Yes,
which takes care of the lightning effects on the temple.
Yes.
So that's what I want to say.
So I want to mention one point in this context. Actually, you mentioned the 8 hertz, right?
Right.
So there is an electrical charges of 8 hertz, right? So when we are in deep relaxed state, that mindset, the mind, actually the brain, which is generated the wave when we are in relaxed state, that is about 4 to 8 hertz. So that is
So 8 hertz is also the earth natural frequency actually.
Yeah, and one thing I want to share with you, if you allow me, so that it is far from us, that is in ancient Egypt. So in Giza, there is an oscillator inside the Giza. The radiator, it's about 6 hertz. Yeah, you can check about it. Yeah, in that resonator, the frequency is vibrating, which is the vibrational frequency of our meditation state. So this 4 to 8 hertz is the frequency of our meditational state. So when we are come into that mind at that level of frequencies, I think that is why the resonance frequency is about 8 hertz, which is from the troposphere. The correct you mentioned the 8 hertz. So to keeping our mind into that particular relaxed state or the meditative state, so that is why I as per my concept, I think that frequency is chosen.
That is formed in the temple from Kalasha to
that inside the Garbhagriha, inside
exactly,
the
Dvajastambha is the actual ground, is electrical final ground, and the Kalasha on the which is also called the 7th chakra, which connects to the cosmos or the universe or the is the 7th chakra. So from Mula chakra to Kalasha, which is the Sahasra chakra. So it's a huge, it's a pretty good electrical circuit. I mean, we can also do it from electrical point of view. What we did is amazing actually from sonic
one
point
more
of view.
One more angle here, Monisha ji has come out is that the meditation angle of coming to the level of 7 frequency, 7 or 8 frequency. So we Vedas say that Saddam has come, Onkar Saddam has come from Akasham, from the sky. So this 7 and now the NASA has declared that the movement of sun, the sound is coming from sun as Onkara. And this is coming at lower frequency. That's why we could not hear it. And that means the meditation and how our rishis could say that Onkaram is coming from the sky. Probably this is the reason why the meditation effect will go to the level of 7 frequency, by which they could hear that Onkara sound. Now NASA hearing by the instruments. They could hear in their meditative state itself that Onkara sound and declared, yes, Onkaram is coming from the this is Saddam is coming. Akasham is Shabda Swarupam. Akasham creates Shabdam. Then comes Vayu, Sparsha, Shabda Sparsha, Rupa Rasagandhas, Panchabhutas. That is the concept that has been created in the Panchabhutas concepts. So that's how the Vijnanam in addition technology, ancient rishis is much higher level, as Shivaji was also telling earlier. It is much higher level than the present time scientists' views of things, but that is to be explored and to be established in a black and white. That is a problem now. So now let us go. Some more questions are there.
Sir,
Some people.
Prabhakar ji, could you please connect me to Monisha ji actually?
Sure, definitely. I will add the numbers to you. So now I'll ask Sudhaji to share your opinion, please. Sudhaji. Malay ji, Jhansi ji. Both are not free. Mutgaru, you would like to share?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
See, last month, I attended a conference in Chennai, Indian Social Science Congress, where Vice Chancellor of Anna University has given a wonderful lecture. In that, talking on the energy sector, the air conditioning used for the IT towers in Chennai, for instance, only in the Mahabalipuram road, the IT sector is there, all tall buildings, posh buildings are there. And the power consumption is 1500 megawatts. That is 15% of Tamil Nadu's power utilization. So he referred very nicely that why not we make this temple architecture a cultivate where we get cool breeze. And in all Tamil Nadu temples, if you see, nowhere the air conditioning is there. Cool breeze is there, 20 degrees, 18 to 20, 21 degrees. So why not we construct all these IT towers using the ancient temple architecture so that we can have natural air conditioning and reduce the power consumption. Thus, this type of architecture and engineering has to be developed in the country. That's what we refer that I want to share with this ancient art, because we are discussing about ancient art.
Excellent session. Excellent session. So,
Yeah, namaste. Namaste, Mahodaya. Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Both of you, ma'ams, I have a request. Please, both of you, please visit Sringeri temples, madam. Sringeri temple is constructed in the form of Sri Chakra, the outer boundary of the temple. If you stand outside the temple, you can see the Sri Chakra, going up till the tip. And when you go inside, there are representation of 9 planets. Actually, we went on a tour from college. There was a historian sitting there and explaining about the architecture of the temple. It was very late in the night, and next morning we had to come back to college. So we didn't have much time to spend with him. But my request to both of you is that you please visit the Sringeri temple, because you have done extensive study on this architecture. Very well done. I totally appreciate your report, madam. And please, add this list also, this temple also to your list. Thank you, madam.
Jhansi ji, Jhansi
Malay
ji.
Yeah, namaste ji. A very, very wonderful presentation, and now.
No, your voice.
Yes, are you able to hear, sir?
Yeah, now okay. Oh, please.
Yeah. It's really wonderful presentation. Now our Hindu scriptures are coming into research. That is very appreciable efforts from our side. My question is, we are only telling that this is already there in the Vedas, and there whatever discoveries are happening, we are telling that these are already there in the Vedas, but we are not trying to find out, which is not yet find out so far, but still in the scriptures are there. Are there any that kind of researches are going on? That is one. Second is, you said that temple architecture is creating some energy waves because of this geometry, and sound waves are creating energies. If suppose there are no sounds, no chanting is happening in the temple,
still there can be energy creation is happening. That is one. If suppose if that energy creation happen without chanting because of winds through the structural complexity of the structures, can we create miniature of those structures in our own homes to create some positivity? These are my doubts.
Excellent, Jansi ma'am. I'll take the second question first and then leave the first one to Monisha ji. The second question actually says that whether the without chanting mantras, can we create the energy vibrations? Yes, absolutely. According to this particular research, I'll stick to this paper as of now. I'll show one little. Okay, I'll just show it on this. That I have this point sound source, and this is the emanation, right? This is how the sound is spreading like that outside. Okay. And I have another point source, and the sound is emanating like that. Correct? This is what we were coming at in this research.
Yes.
Now, my point here is, change the color so that it's visible. Now, my point here was this central region. What is happening is, now this, I'm not exactly talking about the sound source. I mean, that is no verbal sound or mantras need to be chanted. This is the manifestation, that is the physical form of a particular sound. So that, when depicted here, has these energy centers. So this blue portion is now where both the sounds are actually, they are hitting each other, that is, they are colliding with each other, and they are bouncing back. That is why it was mentioned that this particular portion becomes a very high energy zone. Now, similarly, if we stand right in the center of the mandapa, because Garbhagriha, most of the cases we do not enter. So in the mandapa, if I'm standing exactly at the center, actually it may be argued that we are at the center and it should be the highest energy portion according to the overall the superstructure, that is the Vimana, the Shikhara portion. But in the sense, it is actually the beginning point, that is the point source, the source of that sound, and therefore it is not energy, whereas as it goes out, this portion, this blue portion which I'm drawing, is highest energy as of now. And then as it emanates, it will again decrease gradually. In the superstructure, it is shown with respect to the size of the space and the height of the Shikhara, how much energy will be concentrated. And this I'm saying only on the basis of geometry, not on the basis of actual verbal sounds in that space.
Okay.
Did I kind of answer that question?
Yeah, I understood. Maybe that is the complexity of geography, is to create some energies.
Yes. And in this research, we only focused on how this geometry is giving us an idea of, what way the energies are concentrating and which regions the energy will be higher and lesser. So moreover, in this particular paper, we've only focused on the plan. Now, the next step would be to focus on the elevation and look at the whole volume. So that will give us the perfect comprehensive idea of what is actually going on.
Are there any studies about the impact of these energies on a human behavior or human mind?
Yes.
Or,
now, yes, ma'am.
Change in attitudes and enlightenment.
Yes, absolutely. So what we can actually do is, like Monisha ji was showing on her slides, that there are certain frequencies, and every piano note, every scale, or every C sharp and Kali Panch, and the way we understand our scales and musical notes, all of those have a certain frequency. So for all our feelings and moods and all our ailments and problems and even good feelings, we have certain notes and they have certain impacts. Those are all to a great extent well established.
Okay, great, appreciated. And there are some temples which we don't even know. I have one temple called Srimukha Linga in Andhra Pradesh, Srikakulam, in a small village. This has got very great history, but it is not cared enough. So there are so many secrets still
That's
existing.
true for so many areas, ma'am. We are yet to explore everything about India itself.
Regarding
Okay.
these miniature things in the house, what is your comment? The creation of same energies in a miniature form at the houses.
Yes, ma'am. We have read some research on that, but I'm not an expert, so I won't comment on that.
Okay, thank
Can I
you.
supplement? I've got 1 or 2 points here.
Jain sir, boliye.
Sir, first of all, congratulations to these authors. First thing what we are forgetting is in a temple, the energy is also stored in this area zone where the resonance takes place. And this is stored for time, not to be recorded. It is always there. Whenever there is slightest excitation, the energy reverberates and gets stored in the lobe area where the two sounds are meeting. It's like a capacitor or a vessel which is storing energy. So when you go to temple anytime, you will have some energy available to you all the time. It's not necessary that it is excited, it is not excited. And energy is not received only from chanting mantras, it is received from other sources as well, which can be electromagnetic in nature, which can be ions, or which can be anything else, any kind of radiation, which we are not really understanding, or we have not gone into the depth of that. So this is basically the reason why temples are always energized. Okay, and because their geometries are such, and it has been mentioned by our authors here, that they have been designed as architectural marvel where this kind of energy accumulation can take place. Second point is that we all human beings, we are also having a similar architecture in ourselves, and when we receive the same frequencies, all our kind of chakras, they get activated. The relation of 5 and 4 together 9, okay, or the frequencies 432, which is what, if we divide by 4, we get 108, right? Which is nothing but 27 into 4. Our Rishi Munis knew all this, that we have got 27 nakshatras, right? And this is how it is going. 4 is the base frequency, Om. And this is how entire science has been developed. Over a period of time, all this information has been transferred from one to another, from generation to generation. And even today, those who are practicing temple architecture and those who are panditas, they understand this. And that's how they position Garbhagriha and Antaralaya, everything with those measures. Their measures are basically basic in their fingers, angusht, anguli, this kind of thing. And they do it by simple using threads. So this is what my submission is.
Yeah,
and
thank you very much.
Actually, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jain sir. Here I would like to add 1 or 2 things, one more things. One yogi, one rishi from Maharshi Swam, his name is Viswamji Swamiji from Guntur. He was telling that there is a cosmic force always attracted at that particular point where the Vigraham is Pratishthapana was done. That cosmic force will be attracted and kept and captured for a period of time by the mantras that is chanted by the Brahmins before doing Pratisthapana and with the Yantra Pratishta. They do a lot of japam before doing, they first create Yantra. When I did temple also, first we made the Yantra done by the Yantra specialist. Then that Yantra was given with mantras, japams. Some few lakhs of japam was done on that. Then the Pratisthapana was done with Veda Pandits. With 5 days Karikram was there, complete Veda chanting was there. With that Shakti that has been incorporated in the temple, and that's always energy is lying, is stored there. That energy is being experienced by the people who are entering the temple. And for a period of time, because of our energy is being taken by us, and our by the papas or sins or whatever we have do, that is being counteracted by those japa Shakti, that gets diminished over a period of time. When gets diminished over a period of time, these temples affect also, the Shakti also gets degenerated. That's why in a periodically Kumbhabhishekams are done. The Kumbhabhishekams for the temples periodically done to regenerate that Shakti in the temple. So this is the logic given by the Kanchi Swamijis also, and the Ganapati Sthapitis also, and various Veda Pandits also whom I met during the period of these activities. So these are all the basic cosmic forces there behind this whole temple architecture, and that is being stored there in the temple. We experience that when we go there. That's why whenever you enter a temple, you find a very peace and calm and atmosphere, and you feel somehow elevated from the normal condition of your life. So this now request Swamiji would like to take this Upasamharam, please. Swamiji, are you there?
With your permission, can I say?
Yeah, Ramakrishna, please. Oh, okay, you can add before Swamiji talks. Okay, Ramakrishna ji, please tell your point.
I've got a question for the speakers, who have done a wonderful.
Swamiji, please excuse me. Let him complete that question also.
Yeah. So first, let me thank the presenters, today. And before I ask a question to them, Jain Saab, he told something about 432. Can you please elaborate what is it 432? I have not got it.
432 is the base frequency. Okay. And generally all the octaves are taken from there. In English, people say 440 hertz is the base frequency for C2, C and notes like that. See, all of us, we get motivated when we hear music. Why we get motivated? Because our body is tuned to that particular frequency and the octaves. Okay, or our structure is like that. So all human beings are always excited when they hear some music. And this is how it happens in temples. When we go to temples, our base is nothing but those frequencies. So when we are aligned to those frequencies, we feel soothed, or we get kind of a good feeling. So this is what it is. People also say, one of my friend or some yogis say that we go to temple only to recharge us, like we recharge our mobile phones and things like that. When we go, we get totally calm, quiet, and we come back happy. So this is what it is.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Somebody told that temples are all workshops. So that is nicely put.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
About
much.
the observation, about this today's lecture is that whatever you have submitted the article, in the presentation you have added very good material further. So that's a very nice improvement. You further added to substantiate your points. That's very nice. I think if you are able to put back some information from this presentation into the article, that would be enriching. That also is one feeling I got. So
probably they are all there in that article. Are they not in
some
that
of,
article?
Some of them are added today, I believe.
Is
I
it?
have seen that.
Okay.
The sound filler is not there in the paper, I think.
Yeah, many.
Please add that also. Please add that also.
Quite a number of things I have noticed. You added today, which are very interesting. That's why I'm saying you can push those things into the article also.
Okay.
That's one thing. And second thing is, see, in the Antaralaya or Garbhagruha, all this effect of the sound and all that has been understood. But on the panels, outside the periphery, you try to bring, in the panels how these particular sonic effects are brought out. Maybe you've covered, perhaps I missed, or I don't know whether outside. I'm talking about the outside structure, how this sonic thing is brought into the design. Can you please elaborate on that?
Actually, as per I know, we have not covered the sonic effect in the pillars. All the pillars outside the Garbhagriha and Antaralaya, and the Mahamandapa and the other Mandapa. Am I right, Tanisha ji?
Yes, Monisha ji. In fact, exterior where I was showing the pictures and the jaggedness, I was highlighting the fact that it is corresponding to the plan of the Sri Yantra. That is what was highlighting, and the elevation and the panels and the sculpture and the shikara has not been addressed as yet in this particular paper. Only the plan of the temple has been taken.
Okay,
thank you.
Swaminiji, one more person I would like to invite. Shall I invite him, or you would like to speak? Shall I invite him? Prahlad Kumarji. Prahlad Kumarji, you are waiting, I know. Please share your opinions.
Namaskaram, sir.
Yeah, no.
This is a very wonderful paper and presentation is excellent. But the only point I want to make here is temples are not just resonators of sound, they are actually cosmic energy collectors. Whereas the same thing, whether it is, if you go to the West Coast, all the temples they are having the main Garbhagriha roof is that of a pyramid, or it is a cone. Therefore, the pyramid itself has got in capacity to focus cosmic energy into the center. That is one point. Second point, I have also done some experiments on non-conducting pyramids constructed to the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and using those pyramids with non-conducting materials, I have been.
No, voice has gone. Voice is going in between.
Sorry, sir. It is the large number of
pyramids. From pyramids, please start.
From the pyramids which I have built using non-conducting materials like styrofoam, wood, and other things, I have been able to repeat large number of experiments which actually produce mummification without any extra energy. Therefore, not only that, at the center of the pyramid, when you take the middle 1/3 portion and sit onto the Agneya Mula of that, you can get enormous amount of concentration and meditation effects inside the pyramid. Therefore, the pyramids are actually cosmic energy collectors. That is one aspect. The second aspect is yat kinchit sarvam shruyate drishyate piva tat andarbahiccha sarvam narayana vyapyastitaha. Therefore, the temple is not just a sound energy resonator, but it is also an astronomical observatory. Not only that, the 7 floors on the temple tower, they actually work as cosmic energy or solar energy focusing points. And the Dhvajastambha is actually a miniature measure of that temple towers. And the focusing point of the highest floor on the tower, temple tower, to the top of the pillar, Dhvajastambha, and that is the entire point goes to the Mula Vigraha or Mula Virat in the Garbha. And you can actually see this in Hampi Virupakshadeva temple, where the temple towers get an inverted image cast onto the walls of the temple. Not only that, second aspect about the Vijaya Vithala temple, the musical pillars. The musical pillars are not just solid pillars, they are hollowed out pillars. They are actually used, they have hollowed it out from inside, and by using different diameters of those pillars, they have been able to generate a large number of musical instrument effects in different combinations of those pillars. That is one. Second aspect is they are also the Agneya and Ishanya corners of the temple. They are used for observing summer solstice and winter solstice. The main door of the temple tower is used to focus onto the system. Therefore, it is also used for Vishwat, Vasanta Vishwat and Sharad Vishwat observations. The 2 corners are used for the observation of summer solstice and winter solstice. And the central point of the Garbhagriha, the Kalasha which was placed on the top of that, they use it to remove it. And by placing head on the foot of the main deity, they could observe the stars passing overhead. Therefore, that was also used for actual astronomical observations. And the 7 towers or 7 kalashas on the temple tower, they were used to correlate with the passing of special Jyotish Mandalas or Nakshatra Mandalas for correlating with the latitude and longitude calculations and other things. Therefore, they are not just sonic towers, as you have said, in cymatics. I have also done some experiments on cymatics, and they are actually pertain to the swaras of the Sanskrit alphabet, and they are actually, they also refer to the Pingala Chandas Shastra, where the 7 basic chandas, they are increasing by 4 letters from your Gayatri Chandas to Brihati Chandas and other Jagati Chandas. Therefore, these are actually, they also pertain to astronomical manifestations, where you start from hydrogen, then go to helium, and again add another helium atom. That way, it goes on fusing into 1 by 4 by 4, 4 by 4, 4 by 4. In 7 stages, they come to the point of creating iron inside at the core of the star, and when it explodes, that iron comes into the system. Therefore, iron is the finest last element that is created due to fusion in the star cores. Therefore, these are another thing about Amrita Manthana also. Somebody was talking about it. This Amrita Manthana is not just what is happening in Puranic stories, but this Amrita Manthana is the churning of earth itself as Mandaragiri, and the north-south axis of the Mandaragiri that passes through the center of the earth, that is your Dhruva, and the Meru at the top of that is Surya Nakshatra. Therefore, the point pointed out by the center of the solar axis is your Vishnu Pada. Therefore, Amrita Manthana takes place with reference to that, and Vishnu is sitting on the top of that Amrita Manthana or Mandaragiri, and there the Hydra constellation which surrounds the equilateral equatorial elliptical plane of the earth, that is your Vasuki. Therefore, these are the Puranas are not just hypothetical concepts or just symbolical arguments, but they are actually describing astronomical happenings or cosmic systems. And one of the 4 diagrams you have shown about the 4 earths, the planes and other things, that also actually shows India was part of the southern continent called Gondwana, and all the almost 7 continents were there. And when they got split up, and the India moved across the equator towards the Asian continent, and that created the Himalaya Parvatas around 65 million years back. Therefore, this is actually the time we talk of Agastya moving from north to south is actually crossing of the equatorial line by the Indian continent, subcontinent, when it crosses the equator and moved towards the Himalayas. Therefore, these are all geological phenomena, astronomical phenomena, and your spine, basically, your spine is the 7 chakras, and it is the Meru Stambha, and the top of that is Sumeru, and the bottom is called Kumeru. Ku is earth, and Kumeru is the 2, the Mooladhara and Sahasrara are the 2 reflectors, and between these 2 reflectors, when you circulate your, let us say, speech energy without bringing it out of your mouth, and make that those thoughts circulate from Mooladhara to Sahasrara and again reflect it back without uttering it, you are creating sonic laser beams. Therefore, that energy which comes out as a mantra, that creates resonance within the human body, and it creates resonance in the system. Therefore, Moola Gruha is not only that, it is made so dark because they wanted to observe stars passing overhead through the Shikhara Kalasha on particular days pertaining to that particular deity. And another thing is these tantric granthas. There is Kularnava Tantra, Sharda Telaka Tantra, Mahanirvana. There are about 220 Tantra Grantha. Describe Shakta, Shaiva, Vaishnava, Saura, Ganapatya, Kaumara, Pujas, and other things. And they are actually, they create yantras with this. And C.G. Jung, the famous psychologist, in his collective unconscious and other things, he has given about 30 mandala diagrams which pertain to the sonic energy within the human body. Not only that, the other things, the prana, mukhya prana is actually not just Vayu, but it is actually the ionic energy. And then when we talk of Nilakantha, the ionospheric layers are actually the point where cosmic energy, ultraviolet radiation is prevented by the ionospheric layers of the Earth from reaching the life forms on the face. Another important point by others they have talked about is there have been 6 extinctions of life on Earth in the last 5 billion years. And there have been, the Earth was a single continent. It's split up into a number of continents. They have come together, they have gone away, they have come together, they have gone away at least times. And there is a Zealandia continent between Australia and New Zealand, which is just below the ocean waters, about 400 feet deeper. And the last 12,000 years back, there was a very big asteroid hit in the North America, Europe, and Central Asia, which destroyed the population at that time. And all the coastal cities were sunk into the oceans. Therefore, because of that, people migrated from the central point in Central Asia towards different continents. Population bottleneck, and that is how we have lost our basic Vedic knowledge, which was there before 12,000 years ago. This is the point I wanted to convey, and I don't know how much of it is relevant to this, but I'm covering all the 3 topics that have been covered today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's what I expected. That's what I wanted, and I expected to hear from you to cover all the 3 topics and give your conclusion remark. So, thank you very much, Prahlad Kumar Garu. Now, I request Swaminiji, please to do the Upasamharam and give the Ashirvadam. Mute, unmute, please.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm very happy that today we had a very great 3 topics. All of them are very good and we have been enlightened by all these topics. And this temple sonic geometry also is very good, very well presented. And I want to mention that in Gujarat, we have built one temple, it's a Pancha Devalaya. So in one platform, we have 5 deities. We know all this Panchayat and Puja, when the Shiva is in the center, then all the other deities have the corners, like Ishana is a Vishnu, and then Agni is a Surya Narayan, then Nairuti is a Ganesha, and Vayavya is a Amba Devi. And in the center, Shiva is there. So Shiv Panchayatan temple we have created. What I want to mention about that is that in the south, there is one Shankar Narayan in Bangalore. He is a Sthapati, actually is a professor of the sculptures. And he suggested us that for every temple, those days it was done, which is called the Rasakumbha Sthapana. So below the Shivalinga or any deity, they put the mercury pot under it, and then they connect the mercury pot and the deity or the Shivalinga with the copper. And there is a Shivagama, there a whole chapter is there regarding Rasakumbha Sthapana in Shivagama. And according to Shivagama, we did the Rasakumbha Sthapana also here. And that is where the vibration comes. When we chant the Veda, all the vibrations are being captured by that copper wire, and the Rasakumbha, we enhance the energy of the temple. So inside the Garbhagruha, when the mantras are chanted, all these energy are absorbed in that mercury. So that's why whenever we go to the temple, we see the energy. So that is the way we preserve the energy of the temple in the Rasakumbha. And the Shivalinga, what we have done, the Sthapana is a 10.5 feet tall. So when we make a new Shiva temple, there is a rule that we have to divide it into the 3 parts. The below 1/3 is the square, which is a Brahmaji. The middle 1/3 is the Ashtakona, which is a Vishnu. And the top is a Shivalinga. So we have this 10.5 feet Shivalinga there, and it is a 18 tons the weight of the Shivalinga. Now, according to the weight and the height of the Shivalinga, we have to decide what kind of what the weight of the Rasakumbha we have. You won't believe we have a 25 kg mercury under that, because that much energy is being preserved there.
And also now there is the one Sri Vidya expert in Mysore called Tyagaraja. He's very expert. He has done lot of research on Sri Vidya and Sri Yantra and all that. And he also organized because of this corona, he has not done that. Otherwise, he is always every year, every 2 years, he does the conference on Sri Vidya. A lot of people come and do the research and the presentations and everything. One of the conferences I attended. So he tells that Shiva is always with the Shakti. See, Sri Vidya is not Lakshmi. We have connected Sri Vidya with the Lakshmi. That's the wrong thing. It's a Shakti. So because we have a Shivalinga, so he came here and he concentrated 1 feet by 1 feet by 1 feet Beirut, and Sri Yantra also is being concentrated here in the temple. So when you enter the temple, you can see the vibrations also there. And so this is a very good model temple here in Gujarat. So whenever you visit, let me know. I can take you there. It's a very beautiful temple. And a lot of things are there. I can't even talk about that. I need at least 2 hours to talk about the temple. But it's a very, all the sthapatis are you call sthapati in the south, but in north we call Sompura, those who are doing the construction work and also carving, all that. So Sompura he is expert in the temple construction. So he did all these things for us. And so I'm very happy that so many things are going on, and I'm very happy that very nicely presented. Oceanography also is very nicely presented. And I want to say that before they started this sonic geometry, they did the prayer. So I want to suggest one shloka which is talking about this mantra only. So I will chant that. Omkarascha atha shabdascha, Omkarascha atha shabdascha, dvau eto brahmana pura kantham pitva viniryato, tasman mangalika ubhau. So this is the mantra we chanted. So you should chant that mantra. I will put that in the group. So it's a very beautiful mantra for chanting, because in the beginning of the creation, these two voice, Om and Atha, Dhvani, came out of the Kantha of Brahmaji, and that is how he created the creation. So whole creation is nothing but vibration. Now science also is telling, we call it a Spandana Tattva. Whole Kashmiri Saivism is a Spandana Tattva. So you should I can say that you can explore the Kashmiri Shaivism also, because that Spandana Tattva, Nadaswara and Spandana Tattva is there. So you can go and discuss that also. It's a very beautiful topic, because it's endless to talk, but I'm very happy today. We had very good 3 topics. I'm also enlightened by all of you. God bless you. I'm very happy. Let's have new topic also next week. And let's continue to share our knowledge and bring all of us together. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you.
Can we chant the mantra?
No, we will chant the Shanti mantra. Thank you very much for everybody. Thank you very much. Babu would like to thank everybody. Babu, Dr. Babu.
It's okay. No, let us thank everybody for their participation, and also all the speakers who have given their very knowledgeable comments. Let us have Shanti Mantra on this.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryankara Vavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Satcham Vada Dharmanchara Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Harihi Om. Now, after Janaganamana, we'll close. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभाशिष माहे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद जय हिंद जय हिंद जय श्री राम जय श्री राम जय श्री राम